We're having fun in Portland, Maine.
Heck yeah. So tell us the name of the company and what you guys do.
I'm Don Littlefield with the Maine Brew Bus based in Portland, Maine, and we provide all-inclusive insider tours to locally owned breweries, wineries, and distilleries.
Get a little bit of history and get a little drunk.
That's right. The best way to see Portland is through the bottom of a tasting glass.
Sounds like the best way to see any city.
Agreed. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for joining us on another journey today. We're at Portland, Maine. What are we doing, April?
The Maine Brew Cruise tour, which is a walking tour.
If you're new to the channel, this is April, and I'm Wayne. So hit that subscribe button and ring that bell, because we do a video every Thursday from somewhere in the world. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the journey.
So in 1775, a British captain is under orders. His name is Henry Mowat. He's under orders to bombard several settlements up and down the northern part of New England. He starts with Portland. He had a little run-in 3 years earlier where he thought he was falsely imprisoned. He takes his 4 other ships and they anchor right outside Portland Harbor. And they send a party ashore to say, you've got 2 hours before we level your city. The only way you can get out of this is if you sign a pledge to the king and you lay down your arms. Portlanders basically said, no, we don't want to do that. Because of that 2-hour warning, and because the city was literally just a few blocks wide here along the water, the local Portlanders were able to escape away from the water because the cannon fire can only go so far. And Henry Mowat levels the city, destroying it for the 2nd time. Oh, I had Lieutenant Colonel Jerry Scott bring his horse Hercules over here to meet you. This is Hercules. Morning, Colonel Scott, how are you? But he literally is a retired United States Army equestrian commander, and upon his retirement he decided that he could use horses for good. So he runs yoga programs with horses, get well programs for kids, and as I said, he's just literally here to lift our spirits. We have to assume that he realized that we had smiles underneath our mask, right? Yeah. We've arrived at Shipyard Brewing Company. This is Maine's 2nd largest brewery and also a top 50 brewery in terms of production in the United States. The building we're entering is over 100 years old. It's a former foundry, can you believe it or not? They made locomotive parts, marine parts, and later mining parts as well. This was the Crosby Laughlin Foundry. And when I was a young kid, and my buddy Aaron, who's a longtime friend of mine, was a young kid, we remember coming here to the Village Cafe, parking lot across the street, and watching them pour slag, pounds, sparks, loud noises, that sort of thing. We remember that quite fondly. And Shipyard Brewing Company, which started in 1992, needed a larger place to grow into, and this provided that. This is over 150,000 square feet between this building here and also a corrugated metal warehouse that stood to the right. As you can see, some construction going on here to the right, and this is going to be a Cambria Hotel. This time next year we can all come back for the reunion tour, because it's going to be a beer tel, a brew tel, so a beer flavored hotel. I hope that means that there's taps in the shower. You are too. I hope that means that there's exfoliating rubs from hops. But either way, it'll be pretty interesting, and Shipyard is involved in that project as well. The very first question, Chris has got a really investigative mind. He's like, they can't possibly make all the beer here. And I said, you're right. And I'll tell everybody that Shipyard, although they, at one time had over 150,000 square feet here, they have progressively sold off some of those parts. There's a reason for that, and I'll tell you once we get all of our beers. They're making their beer mostly off this site here and at 5 locations around the country. So that's in Portland at a brewery called Geary's. It's also in just outside of Burlington, Vermont, at what was previously Magic Hat, now owned by Zero Gravity. They're brewing under contract at High Falls Brewing, which is in Rochester, New York, the makers of Genesee. They're doing a little bit, I believe, in Memphis, Tennessee, and a lot to come out of Florida with a relationship they signed with a brewery down there called Brew Theory. They're brewing a large quantity, not here. This is exclusively for research and development test batching. 4 barrels at a time. So barrel equals 31 gallons of beer. And so 4-barrel system means that they're only doing about 120, 125 gallons at a time. So small batch testing before they can scale up. They also have the capability of doing larger batches in Kennebunkport at that original location. That's still an active brewery for them. Our beers have arrived, so it is time to taste the beer.
What was this, the monkey?
Yes, I tasted the monkey fist and it was too strong for me.
Yeah, that is.
Okay, we're gonna try the monkey fist.
Do you like cucumber? I do. I can see what he's saying. How it's like
It has
Fiorita.
a different type of flavor to it. The first sip of it is kind of woodsy, almost a tree barky.
That's true.
It's definitely different. I'll keep drinking it, make sure it's good enough to try it again, but
Good stuff.
Which one's that?
So let's get more information about the company.
I like to drink one at a time.
In 1992.
I just finished up the Monkey Fist. The first sip, not my favorite, but as you drink it, it actually starts to taste much better. The first taste was like, ooh, and then after that, I was like, actually, it's good. It's good. I'm like, I actually want more of it now. It's definitely unusual. I would highly suggest trying a little bit of it if you first sip, don't stop, keep going. It's an acquired taste.
This is the cucumber tart.
Cucumber doesn't belong in beer.
Try it. Like for a good summery drink.
We're gonna live on the edge and try cucumber beer.
She's loving it.
The smell. It smells like cucumber.
Two are married. One son school for a couple of years.
Cucumber doesn't belong in beer.
It's good. On a hot summer day.
It doesn't belong in water either.
And as we walk up to this intersection, notice at the top of the street is the retaining wall for the oldest burial ground of the city of Portland. That's Eastern Cemetery. With the first interments in 1668, that's where Portland's forefathers and foremothers are mostly buried. A few notable people that I do want to point out that were buried there. 2 captains that were facing off against each other during the War of 1812. One British and one American. British vessel, the Boxer. The American vessel, the Enterprise. Not that one. These 2 ships' captains, and they had to wait until the wind brought them alongside of each other, and then they fired against each other, and both ships' captains were killed. So as their sweet reward, they're buried next to each other in nearly identical graves, and their names are Captains Blythe and Burrows. Perhaps on your list of cocktail bars to visit is a bar called Blythe and Burrows, and now you know the origin of the name. Giovanni Amato, as an Italian immigrant, realized that this location was such a hotbed of different things happening, that people were working and playing and living and all of the stuff in this same neighborhood. So he said, if I come up with a sandwich that they could eat, standing up on the fly that was fairly cheap, I can make a killing. So he develops a sandwich that becomes known as the Maine Italian. Before I tell you what it is, I'll tell you what it's not. It is not a hoagie, a grinder, a sub, or a hero. There's no lettuce, no mayonnaise, and no vinegar involved. Here's what it is. Soft Italian roll with cheap ham, American cheese, dill pickles, white onions, red tomatoes, green peppers, and black olives. Dressed simply with salt, pepper, and a little bit of an olive oil blend, it becomes known as the Maine Italian. Wrapped in wax paper for a nickel, you could stuff it into a jacket or into a pack, and the working class folks could eat it standing up. It also has all 4 food groups. So if you're worried about your figure, there's that. So popular was this Maine Italian that 10 years later, Giovanni Amato moved his operation across the street, where there is still a location of Amato's today, although that building was built in 1995, so don't be tricked. Amato's is about 45 locations now scattered throughout Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Vermont, all based on the Maine Italian, which, by the way, costs over $5 now. Over here, before we do, I'm gonna warn you, this intersection, this stop sign is not well respected by Portland drivers. Puppies make dogs better. And you see Middle Street today is a hotbed of restaurants, most notably Duck Fat in the middle of this building, East Ender on the left, Ribolita on the right. The building that we're actually pointing at was built by Big Jim McGlinchey, and this is part of the proceeds of his brewery operation. It was designed to be just what it's doing today. First floor retail, second and third floor mostly residential. Duck Fat is definitely worth it, but I'll give you a pro tip. Duck Fat also has a second location. It's adjacent to Oxbow Blending and Bottling. It's called the Duck Fat Freak Shack. And if you're looking for their fries, go to the brewery that has the fries next door. No lines, no waiting.
Good idea.
There you go. Love pro tips. And there was a big fire. A big fire, probably arson. It was such a large fire in such a bad spot during a summer day with the wind blowing in that direction. It took 30 departments to come here to make sure that it didn't turn into the Great Fire of 2007. Fortunately, no firefighters injured or killed. They did save it from spreading. They couldn't save the building. It did hasten the redevelopment for sure. And that redevelopment includes our second stop, which is Sebago Brewing Company, located here on the corner. Now, don't judge a book by its cover sometimes. I know what you're thinking. He's bringing me to a hotel bar, but he's not. This is a business that has 4 brewery locations, brew pub locations scattered around southern Maine, and a destination brewery in Gorham, Maine. To tell you that this is not a hotel bar, they own this. This is a corporate condo. They knew a hotel was going in upstairs, but they have no relationship. In fact, you can't charge it to the room. You can't even bring a beer upstairs. So, let's go into Sebago Brewing Company. I'll tell you more when we get inside. Ahoy! Thank you.
Thank you. Sebago.
Yeah, this is a sample of water from Lake Sebago. No, seriously, this is what the brewery is named for. Sebago Lake is the second largest lake in Maine. It's the source of Portland's drinking water, and it's part of the reason that there are so many breweries located here in the state because of the quality of this water. So that is a sample. Consider that just your opening drive here. Just try that out. Each couple, you'll have a pretzel basket to share. The pretzels are served with honey mustard, which is made with their Fries Leaf IPA. So this is your snack break as well. Go ahead and figure out what you're going to order.
So how many do we get?
Order all but 2.
Oh.
So you get 4, he gets 4, and then 2 you don't get.
Got it.
No, actually,
You're mistaken. She gets 8, she gets 9.
Oh, good. Thank you.
That's a flight of beer.
I know, right? Awesome. I feel like Fries Leaf bread. Oh yeah.
I knew you would like this. This is named after the Ben & Jerry's Jerry Garcia, not the Grateful Dead.
Cherry Garcia.
Cherry Garcia.
It's the Ben & Jerry's flavor.
Yeah.
Try it.
That's anything to do with ice cream.
Desserty.
Oh, that is good. I do like a stout. It almost tastes like a brownie.
I could tell the citrus is like.
All right,
I'm gonna try this.
we're gonna try it.
That's fine. That's the famous one, right? Oh no. Fries.
Yeah,
That is good.
Okay.
A little smooth. It's definitely more filtered than I'm used to as far as a Hefeweizen. Look how clear it is.
Try the Mode de Pêche with the peach in it.
It's the famous peach beer. Probably you know how to do about fruit and beer.
Barrel aged farmhouse ale. It's not overpowering peach. It's pretty good.
That almost tastes like a dried
It's very undertone.
Yeah, it's not overpowering. That's good.
Explain a little bit more about the company. I told you about Kai, but Kai has 2 partners named Brad Monarch and Tim Haynes. Those 3 guys met at a very unusual spot. Chili's. It's a neighborhood bar and grill. Kai came to them and applied to be a bar. Kai, already a brewer, knew he wanted to start a brewery, knew he wanted it to be a brew pub, knew he wanted to call it Sabago, and also knew what he didn't know, which is how to run a restaurant. So he literally went in to learn chain operation. Brad, who we were able to talk to on a tour a couple of weeks ago, I said, who hired him? He says, I did. I said, but he had no experience. You're right, he didn't. So why did you hire him? Hired because of his personality. So as you see him there, he's often the public face of Sabago. He is also the current president of the Maine Brewers Guild. So he's a person who's just all things beer. Like, beer is amazing, Maine beer is great, everything is fantastic. He's just a very upbeat and positive person. If you paid attention, I say he moved back to Maine for 2 reasons. One was to be a brewer, but also the other was because he had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And he came back to be with his family and successfully fight that. So they opened the first Sabago location in 1998. Basically an eye shot of that Chili's in the Maine Mall parking lot in South Portland, Maine. Don't judge a book by its cover. This is a brewery that is progressive. They are changing their recipes. They are inventive, they're creative. They've also pissed off their loyal customers sometimes because they delete flavors that don't sell very well. You know, a lot of breweries that are, you know, over 20 years of age are pretty able to be stable. This brewery doesn't want to be stable at all. So they're changing a lot of things to make sure that they're keeping up with the changes of attitudes about beer and changes of you know, flavor profiles as well. So I think you're seeing that in, you know, some of the different beers. They're always well made, and I heard you say something very interesting. I'm not used to a Hefeweizen being this clear, and that's because they also invest a lot in the process. So just a couple of years ago, they spent about $250,000 on a centrifuge, which is a high-speed whirlpool, obviously, to try to extract out every last ounce of flavor. And it does provide a little bit more of a filtering to that. Not every brewery spends that money just to make the beer taste better. One of the things that has really helped this company in this past year is the fact that they're available in 12 packs throughout retail marketplace. And they have a mixed 12 pack as well, which I know was kind of my lifeblood there for a while. When I was going to the store, I'm going to buy the 12 pack because I'm going to get some variety. That investment is just an example of what they're doing behind the scenes for beer quality and to help their workforce and to make sure that more beer can get into people's mouths, I guess, for lack of a better term. So good beer and good food. I am a big fan of the company, and I'm glad that you're enjoying it as well.
What'd you think about the Maine Brews Cruise walking tour?
It was interesting. I learned some things.
It was full of history.
Yeah, and I
even
had
better, lots of beer.
Different kinds of beer.
There was beer I never even knew existed. Who ever heard of cucumber beer?
It was pretty good.
No better way to learn about a city that you're visiting than
Through its beer.
with 9 locations around the United States with more locations to come. Check out the link below. Don did a great job. If you guys are in Maine and you want something different to do, learn a little history, drink a couple beers, definitely recommend the tour. We want to thank you guys for watching our video all the way to the end. If you would, hit that subscribe button, share it with a friend, and like always, thank you for living life.